The SAT is changing, and before taking the digital SAT, you're gonna wanna know what to expect. I'm Nick the Tutor, and I've helped over 50,000 students prepare for the SAT and other tests worldwide. I'm an expert on SAT test prep, and I'm gonna be guiding you today through the changes to the digital SAT and explaining, is the SAT harder? At the end of this video, I'm gonna give you my best tips for hacking the digital SAT to make sure you can score your best, so make sure to stick around for those at the end of the video. The SAT is a test that countless students take on their journey to college, and it's extremely important for many students when applying to top schools or trying to get into their dream school. So understanding the changes to the digital SAT is imperative to doing well on the test. The first major change to the SAT is the test has been shortened from over 3 hours to 2 hours and 14 minutes, and the test has been made more relatable to today's students. So there's many things that are improved about the new digital SAT. This shorter length is meant to reduce testing fatigue and make the test more palatable for you students out there who need to take this difficult exam. The SAT went digital as a result of the pandemic. Because the SAT was unable to be administered during that time, College Board decided to put the test on a computer as a backup plan in case things go crazy again and you need to take the test at home. It is possible, not possible yet, but it could be done. Another shift is that today's SAT is more aligned with what students learn in school. The passages are shorter, the questions are more relatable. Gone are the days of the long history passages and the confusing stuff about Abe Lincoln. Now you have shorter passages that are more relatable on the English section, so students can feel more connected to what they're doing on the exam. Now make sure to stick around to the end of the video where I give you my SAT test breaking tips so you can beat the test and get your best score. Now the SAT also attempted to reduce the stress associated with taking the test. A shorter test is less painful, and I'm already hearing from many of my students that they find the new digital SAT to be a more pleasurable experience than taking the paper test. The reading and writing modules are 32 minutes each, and there's a total of 54 questions. The math modules are 35 minutes each, and there's a total of 44 questions. That's a total of 98 questions, which is way lower than the over 150 questions on the paper SAT and over 200 questions on the ACT. So what would you rather take, a test with 98 questions or a test with over 200 questions? You tell me. Now, I was just mentioning a little about the modules. There are 4 modules on the digital SAT, 2 for reading and writing and 2 for math. They're changing the name of sections to modules. I think that maybe makes it a little less stressful to hear, but that's one of the other big changes to the test. All right, so this is how the adaptive testing works on the digital SAT. You take module 1 of math. That is a mixture of easy, medium, and hard questions. If you do well on that module, you will get a mixture of medium and hard questions for your second module. If you don't do as well on that module, you get a mixture of easy and medium questions for your second module. Now that sounds a little bit unfair, but if you get the easier module 2, your score will be much lower. If you get the harder module 2, your score will be much higher. Now at the end of this video, I'm going to explain exactly what percentage of questions you need to get right to move on to the harder module 2, so make sure you stick around for that. Now you're probably asking, why do they do adaptive testing? Well, the reason is simply to make the test shorter. With adaptive testing, you can cut out a lot of the easy and medium questions in the middle of the test that you don't need to do repetitively, and that enables the SAT to get the same efficacy but shorten the test, which makes it easier for students. Another huge benefit that makes the SAT more pleasurable is that the scores will be back faster. With the old SAT, the paper SAT, it usually took about 2 weeks to get your test scores back. Now they're saying you'll get your test scores back in mere days, which is another benefit that makes students feel that the digital SAT is easier. Another big difference between the digital SAT and the paper SAT is the time per question. On the digital SAT, you have ample time per question to complete the test. On the ACT, for example, you have very little time per question, which makes it very difficult for some students to complete the test. This is another reason that students are saying that the digital SAT is easier than the ACT or the paper SAT. Now let's talk about some challenges. When you're taking a digital test, you're going to have to get used to the digital format. Knowing the tools on the exam is going to be extremely important to doing well, so there's going to be a learning curve for students to understand what to do on the digital SAT, how to use the tools that they give you, such as the Desmos calculator, which is an amazing tool that I recommend you learn how to use. Now, another big barrier for the digital SAT is that you're going to have a device to take the test on. College Board says they will give you a device, or you can use your school device or a home device, but this is going to be another reason that makes the digital SAT a little bit harder than the paper SAT, which is that you need a computer, you need a device to do the test. Now, I promised you guys earlier that I'm going to explain how to hack the digital SAT. Well, to move on to the harder module 2, you're going to have to get about 66% of the questions right to move on to the harder module. So from a strategic perspective, it's going to be very important that you do well on the first module, that you prepare yourself for the first module so you can get to that harder module. If you don't get to the harder module, your score is going to suffer. So you need to practice those module 1 questions to make sure you do well enough on that module so that you can move on to the harder module and get that higher score. So to answer the question, is the digital SAT harder? Well, that's very subjective. I think students feel that the test is easier because it's shorter, which is one of the main reasons students like the digital SAT. The other reason a lot of students are saying that the digital SAT is easier is that they're actually moving on to the easier module 2 because they're not doing that well. And then the test seems very easy because they're getting all easy questions on the second half of the test. Now, that makes it seem easier, but your score may be lower. So I think it's subjective depending on who you are as a person, how you're performing, whether the new test is easier or harder. If you move on to the harder module 2, you're actually going to have a higher concentration of harder questions, therefore making the test seem even harder than the old test. So I think it's very subjective whether the test is easier or harder. We would love to hear your thoughts on the digital SAT, so make sure to drop a comment below. Let me know what you thought of the test. If you took the PSAT, let me know what you thought. If you got your score back, let us know what you got. We're here to help you and we want to see you succeed. Now, what's my opinion? Do I think the new test is easier or harder? Well, I don't really have an answer to that. I think that it's a better test. I think that it's fairer. I think that it's more relatable to students. I think that it's shorter. So I think for those reasons, it's a better test, not necessarily an easier test. If I had to take one, I would probably take the digital test because I feel that it is an appropriate assessment for students. I did take it myself. I did feel that it was fair. Let me know what you think. Comment down below about the new digital SAT. Now, if you like this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below because it really helps us out to continue to create this awesome content for you guys. If you are preparing for the digital SAT, check out my DSAT answer videos where I'm answering every single question on the digital SAT. I'm dropping those every week, so make sure to check those out. If you're looking for help with the SAT, check out the description of this video. We're going to have links to our classes and tutoring. You can even be tutored by me, Nick the Tutor, to make sure you succeed on the digital SAT.